Years, I'm sure. How many of you have been through various types of leadership and management training courses at some point in your career? Yeah. Anybody did Deming's Total Quality Management? Yeah. Anybody Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Successful People? Right. Lean Six Sigma. You're going through. All of these things have one thing pretty much in common. Almost all of them emphasize the importance of communicating with each other. You guys pretty much chose to communicate with each other through a frontal assault.
That's why you're here.
I was in the Navy. I reported aboard my first ship in 1982, straight out of boot camp, and then I went to the Defense Information School where they train journalists and public affairs officers. And I got to my first ship. And like most organizations, when you're the new kid and you're checking on board, you get to meet people up the chain of command. You get to meet your coworkers. If you're going to be in a supervisory position, you'll meet those people. You meet your immediate supervisor, maybe that person's boss, and sometimes up even further. It depends on the organizational structure. In the Navy, on a Navy ship, even the most junior sailor coming on board gets to meet everybody up his chain of command, all the way to the commanding officer. And everyone was very welcoming. They realized that for some people, this is maybe their first time away from home, joining the military. I wasn't. I was considerably older at that point. But it was, they're very nice to you. They're welcoming. They want to lay out for you what the expectations are. Everybody, all the way up to the captain, except for the XO, the executive officer, the number 2 guy in the organization. Now, the captain had me sit down in his office when we talked, which is unheard of. Junior enlisted guy sitting down in front of the commanding officer. The XO kept me standing at attention while he's looking through my meager service jacket that basically says, I had a couple of years of college, I did a little bit of this, I went to boot camp, and I went to the Defense Information School, which we call DINFOS. And so I'm standing there at attention, and he looks up and he goes, "A bleeping journalist, huh?" "Yes, sir." "What the heck am I supposed to do with a bleeping journalist?" "Well, sir, the Navy says that this ship has a journalist billet, so here I am." "Don't you give me any of your lip, son." "We used to have a journalist on board this ship. We got rid of him 18 months ago. We've been doing fine without a journalist all this time." "Do you know what happened to our last journalist, Seaman Verico?" "No, sir. We kicked his butt out of the Navy." "Do you know why we kicked him out of the Navy, Seaman Verico?" "No, sir, because he was a bleeping fruitcake." It's not the words he used, by the way. "Are you a fruitcake, Seaman Verico?" "No, sir, you better not be. And don't you try to pull any of your DINFOS training stuff on me. Because I have a degree in communication." Good communicator, wasn't he? He very clearly communicated to me what his expectation was. And that I should realize that there was nothing that I could do that was going to please this guy. So as the ship's journalist, I had to do press releases and write stories and such like that. And so I would send them up through the chain of command to get approved before we could release them. And they would come back from the XO bleeding. More red ink on them than there was original typing. And I looked at these changes and they made no sense at all. They were happy to glad kind of things. Some of his changes made things actually grammatically incorrect. Some of his changes were outright wrong for the style. Like in the military, in the Navy, they abbreviate Lieutenant capital L capital T period. No period, sorry. Capital L capital T. When we're writing for outside audiences, we're writing for public newspapers and such like that, we abbreviate it capital L lowercase t period. He kept changing the ranks back to the military versions. But it's not releasable that way. So I would look at all these changes that he would make, And rarely was there ever anything of true substance. So I got tired, because this is the time we didn't have word processors. I didn't even have an electric typewriter in my second year on board the ship. The manual typewriter, it had to be all done all over again. We didn't even have carbon paper to make copies. We did have a copy machine, thankfully. So what I did was, I made 2 copies. I sent the first copy up. I kept the other one here. And when that first story came back and it was bleeding, I looked at it, made sure there was nothing legitimate in there. If there was a legitimate change, I would make it. But if there was no legitimate changes in there, up went the other copy. And I figured, if he catches me, I can just apologize and say, sorry, I threw the wrong one in the folder. So that second copy came back. Approved. What was going on there? He was just trying to flex his muscles to show me who was boss. And I'm thinking, all he's doing is wasting his own time. So I kept it up. Now, I put up with that for 1.5 years. And then his replacement came on board, his relief. And I will tell you, his relief was a relief.